Hello and welcome to the Jexit podcast. I'm your host Riley, a former Jehovah's Witness who left the religion in 2019. Thank you for tuning into the fifth of my 6-part series explaining in detail how I woke up from my Jehovah's Witness indoctrination and finally realized the truth about the truth. If you haven't listened to the previous parts, please go back and listen to those first because I'm telling this story in chronological order so it will make a lot more sense. So, where are we in the timeline? It is June of 2020 and for the past couple of weeks I've been researching various doctrines, beliefs, claims and controversies relating to the Jehovah's Witness religion. And it's fair to say that by this time, I'm pretty much woken up. There's nothing that I've researched so far that has given me reason to think that I'm in any way being hasty in writing off this religion as being completely false and man-made. I've been kind of keeping a mental tally in my head with the apostates on one side and the organization on the other. And each time I research a topic, I give 1 point to either side depending on whether or not what they said about that topic was true. So if the apostates were right about it, I give a point to them. If the organization were right about it, I give a point to them. And so far, the apostates are winning 4 points to 0. Actually, the score is much higher than that in the apostates' favor. I'm only counting the main points that I researched. So while I'm going through this process, I eventually stumble across this thing called the Declaration of Facts. Now, I can't for the life of me remember where I saw it or heard it, how that actually came about. But what I remember mostly is the aftermath of this discovery, how it affected me emotionally. And that effect was profound. In fact, it was so profound that I am going to struggle to make this particular episode because it brings up a lot of very difficult feelings for me, and that's an understatement. This subject is something that if I had discovered it while I was a practicing and believing Jehovah's Witness, it's something that I would have written off as being an apostate lie immediately. I would have completely dismissed it out of hand and then without even pausing to take a breath, launched into a tirade of insults against apostates and chalked up their behavior to mental instability or even demon possession. So, with all that being said, what is the Declaration of Facts? I'm reading this directly from its Wikipedia page, which says, "The Declaration of Facts was a widely distributed public statement issued by Jehovah's Witnesses during the period of persecution of the group in Nazi Germany. The document asserted the denomination's political neutrality, appealed for the right to publicly preach, and claimed the witnesses were the victims of a misinformation campaign by other churches. It was prepared by Watchtower Society President Joseph F. Rutherford and released at a convention in Berlin on June 25, 1933. More than 2.1 million copies of the statement were distributed throughout Germany, with copies also mailed to senior government officials, including German Chancellor Adolf Hitler. Its distribution prompted a new wave of persecution against German witnesses." So, to summarize and add some background. In Germany, in the early 1930s, the Nazi regime was rising to power. And under that regime, many different groups of people were persecuted for many different reasons. They were marginalized, and the Jehovah's Witness religion was one of those groups. So in an effort to end this persecution, the then president of the organization, Joseph F. Rutherford, wrote this statement which was sent to many high-ranking German officials, including Adolf Hitler himself. Now, so far, this doesn't seem like a particularly bad thing to do. Quite the opposite, in fact. If you, as an individual or a member of a group of people, feel that you're being mistreated by the state, it's only reasonable to write to state officials and plead your case. Nothing wrong with that at all. So why is this particular document so egregious to me and many other former Jehovah's Witnesses? It's because of the way that Joseph Rutherford went about pleading his case, so to speak. Now, I'm going to refrain from directly quoting from this document, the Declaration of Facts, simply because I find its contents so disturbing and distasteful. Instead, I'm going to summarize it, but leave a link to the original copy of the document in the show notes or the video description below so that you can go and read it for yourself. So to summarize, Rutherford, in this statement, tried to establish common ground with the Nazi regime by saying that they have similar ideas when it comes to the Anglo-American world power and also the Jewish people. He also goes on to express some deeply disturbing and disgusting anti-Semitic viewpoints. And that's as much as I can say about it without feeling physically sick. But as I said, please click the link in the description below and go and read it for yourself. Now, if you happen to be an active, believing and practicing member of the Jehovah's Witness religion and you're listening to this podcast, it wouldn't surprise me if you found what I've just said completely unbelievable. It wouldn't even surprise me if you were angry right now, thinking that this was a prime example of apostate lies. Even if you click the link below and follow it to see the document for yourself, that may not even be enough to convince you. And if it isn't, I can't say I entirely blame you. But fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, this statement, this document, was reprinted and included in the 1934 Yearbook of Jehovah's Witnesses. So if your Kingdom Hall has an extensive library, it may even have a copy of the 1934 Yearbook with the Declaration of Facts included in it. Failing that, you will find them for sale on eBay from time to time, but they are very rare and usually quite expensive. But physical copies are out there if you look hard enough. But even if you can't get hold of a physical copy, just Googling 1934 Yearbook of Jehovah's Witnesses will yield dozens and dozens of results quoting directly from the Declaration of Facts. It's an overwhelming bank of evidence that what I'm saying and what other former Jehovah's Witnesses before me have said is 100% true. Now, if the document itself wasn't enough, the Jehovah's Witness religion in Germany in the early 1930s took this even a step further. The declaration was first read publicly at the 1933 District Convention of Jehovah's Witnesses in Berlin. And to mark the occasion, the witnesses modified one of their kingdom melodies so that it was the lyrics of the original song, but sung over the German national anthem. This was a clear and unambiguous attempt by the religion to ingratiate itself with the ruling regime of the time. So let's pause for a moment and summarize what we have so far. 1. The organization writes a document called the Statement of Facts, in which it praises the Nazi regime for its stance on various political issues, including its hatred of Western governments and the persecution of Jewish people. 2. we have the organization remixing a kingdom melody with the German national anthem. Now, the question we need to ask is, why are these things so bad? Why are they so offensive to former Jehovah's Witnesses and current Jehovah's Witnesses who are researching their religion, many for the first time? Why are Jehovah's Witnesses so shocked when they find this out? Why is this 91-year-old document responsible for shattering the faith of so many people? I'm going to try and answer those questions using my own personal experience, describing what it was like for me when I made this discovery. The reason why this document is so offensive to me is because it is hypocrisy of the highest order. Many of the world's religions feel that they are the one true religion. Jehovah's Witnesses aren't unique in that, but they are at the extreme end of the spectrum where that belief is concerned. And the reason why is very interesting. It all comes back to John chapter 18 and verse 36, where Jesus says that his kingdom is no part of this world. Jehovah's Witnesses hold that scripture as being the basis of their stance of political neutrality. The religion believes God's kingdom, as ruled by Jesus, to be a real government, and that all other human-led governments in the world are in opposition to it. They view allegiance to human governments as acts of treachery against God's government. It's why Jehovah's Witnesses don't vote. It's why they don't protest. It's why they don't serve in the military. Political neutrality is one of the core tenets of the Jehovah's Witness religion. It's fair to say that they view this stance as being an identifying mark of the true religion. So for the leadership of the religion to have taken such a clear and unambiguous, non-neutral stance in 1930s Germany is the height, it's the very pinnacle of hypocrisy. So for me, that's the first reason why this declaration of facts is so offensive. It's hypocritical, highly hypocritical. The second reason is closely related to the hypocrisy of the first, but there's a nuanced difference. And that is that the declaration of facts undermines the religion's truth claims. It undermines its claim to be the one true religion. As I've said many times before, I was a Jehovah's Witness for 42 years. And for as far back as I can remember, there has always been this enmity between the JW religion and the Catholic Church. Jehovah's Witnesses criticize and demonize other religions all the time, but none more so than the Catholics. The Vatican is a JW's favorite punching bag, and it's been that way for as long as I can remember. Now, there are many reasons as to why that is the case, but the one pertinent to this discussion is because of the church's non-neutrality in Germany in the 1930s. I'm going to refrain from making any direct accusations against the Catholic Church. But if you know anything about European history in the 20th century at all, you could reasonably make a plausible argument that the Catholic Church was less than neutral when the Nazis came to power in Germany. And historically speaking, that is not a shocking statement to make. In any era, culture, country, or political system, no oppressive regimes ever come to power in a vacuum. There's no such thing as a self-made dictator. For every dictator that has ever lived, there has always been a long list of influential people and institutions propping them up, or at the very least, looking the other way. And that's hardly a shocking revelation. But getting back to the witnesses in this situation, one of the reasons they hate the Catholic Church is for doing the very thing that they did in 1930s Germany, or at least attempted to do, because it didn't work. It completely backfired and the witnesses were persecuted even more. But still, you can't, on the one hand, hate the Catholic Church for not being neutral in 1930s Germany, when you yourself attempted not to be neutral in 1930s Germany, and then say that you're the one true religion because you're the only religion that doesn't get in bed with politicians. It has long been a point of pride for the JW religion that it doesn't capitulate to regimes and governments who are hostile to its message. And rank and file Jehovah's Witnesses believe that they have the true religion because of that. But the way the religion acted in 1930s Germany just completely undermines all of that. The organization showed itself up to be the same as every other religion. It favors influence over integrity. The third reason why I find this declaration of facts so offensive is that it's just blatantly racist. It espouses the same anti-Semitic tropes and conspiracy theories that we are all familiar with today. These things are nothing new. Now, there are many different definitions of the term racism, none of which, in my opinion, are universally agreed upon. But I don't think any of those definitions are as important as what it means to a person when they experience racism. Now, I've experienced racism many times in my life, and this is what it means to me. This is how it makes me feel. To me, racism says, I don't need to know you, Riley, because you're not an individual. You're barely even a person. I have a set of preconceived ideas and expectations about you, Riley, but they are not derived from what I know of you. They're derived from what you look like. Based solely on what you look like, I can make a determination about your work ethic, your family background, your intelligence, your trustworthiness, your morals, your beliefs, your political opinions, your sexual preferences, your temper, your athletic ability, your command of the English language, and any other quality that makes a person a person. In fact, Riley, I don't even need to see you with my own two eyes to make these determinations. I could just read your description on a piece of paper and know everything there is to know about you. So how could you be a person when the sum total of your character could be reduced to words on a piece of paper? Words on a piece of paper are not a person. So now that we've established, Riley, that you are not in fact a person, why do you need respect? Why do you need love? Why do you need autonomy? Why do you need protection? Why do you need consideration? Why do you need rights? Why do you need any of the things that contribute to a person thriving when you're not even a person in the first place? The simple answer is that you don't, because you are nothing. Everything I've just said is exactly what racism means to me. That's how racism makes me feel, and that's why I abhor it to such a degree, because it's dehumanizing. It reduces you to a thing and says that you do not matter. It robs you of your individuality. And that's exactly what this religion did to me for the first 42 years of my life. It's the same reason as to why I found being a Jehovah's Witness so difficult. My sense of identity and my individuality have always been important to me for as long as I can remember, going back to childhood. And I'm convinced that is why I struggled so much to be a Jehovah's Witness. Because the JW religion is a cult, and cults do not want individuals. They want drones, mindless, faceless drones. They want uniformity. They want everyone to be the same. They call it unity, but it's not unity, it's uniformity. I could characterize my entire time in the religion as a conflict between my individuality and the forces that were seeking to suppress it. And my individuality eventually won that fight, which is why I'm not a Jehovah's Witness anymore. So when I see a person or a group of people being racially oppressed or demonized because of their race, it makes me think about all of this. So to see the religion that I was a part of for the majority of my life being racist, even though it wasn't being racist directly to me, it really hurt. It hurt in a way that I can't even put into words, and I'm pretty good with words. It hurt so much that after reading this declaration of facts, I pretty much did nothing but cry for the next couple of days. That was 5 years ago, and it's still something that I find extremely difficult to talk about. And that was the fifth nail in the coffin of my JW indoctrination. Now, by this time, I was more or less done. I was fully woken up, knew 100% that this was not the true religion and was never ever going back. But there was still one more nail left. One more thing to put the whole situation beyond any doubt whatsoever. Not that it was needed, but it still did. And to find out what that was, you'll need to tune in next week, which will be the final part of this How I Woke Up series. That's all I have for you right now. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Admittedly, it's not very enjoyable because of the subject matter, but I hope you derive some value from it. If so, please give it a thumbs up and a comment on YouTube, and please rate the podcast if you're listening on a podcasting app. These things really help the algorithm gods. We know we have to pay them their due if we want the podcast to get to as wide an audience as possible. And also, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe so that you'll keep up with future episodes. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you have a great week.